January, the Bet UK 2026 agenda brings you world-class speakers and sessions. From Hannah Fry to Amal Rajan, don't miss this carefully curated lineup of special guests that will inspire and educate across key topics shaping the future of education. Your Bet UK 2026 ticket gives you access to hundreds of hours of CPD-accredited content designed to drive meaningful impact in classrooms worldwide. The Bet UK 2026 agenda deep dives into AI, SEND, EdTech, innovation, and more. Join us at Excel London to learn, collaborate, and be part of the global conversation. Get your ticket now. Hello and welcome back to the EdTech Podcast. I'm your host, Philippa Wraithmell, and in this episode, we're joined by Dan Fitzpatrick, educator, author, advisor, and one of the voices helping schools and systems make sense of artificial intelligence beyond the headlines. Dan's journey into AI wasn't driven by hype or disruption for disruption's sake. It started, like many of ours do, with a simple question. How can technology genuinely make education better, fairer, and more manageable for teachers and learners? Since then, his work has taken him from classroom and leadership roles into global conversations around AI strategy, ethics, accessibility, and decision-making in education. Working with schools, governments, and organisations, navigating one of the biggest shifts our sector has ever faced. In this conversation, we explore what it really means to lead in uncertainty, why waiting for perfect clarity can be more risky than acting, and how schools can move beyond frameworks and policies into thoughtful, human-centred practice. This is a grounded, honest discussion about judgment, courage, equity, and what comes after compliance. Welcome, Dan. It is fantastic to have you on the EdTech Podcast. Very much been following your journey over the past few years, and it has been incredible to watch. So please, for our listeners internationally, would you give everybody a little bit of information about you, what you do, and what makes you so passionate?
Yeah, of course. It's amazing to be with you, and really looking forward to our talk. My name's Dan, and I was a secondary school teacher in the UK and moved into secondary leadership, then moved into further education, director role in leadership, always with a passion for educational technology. And I remember training to be a teacher and really being baffled by how because cloud technology had kind of just started to take off, and really being baffled by how nobody was using it. And that really kind of intrigued me because I thought, well, why, first of all? And secondly, how do I tell people about this? Because, just in a basic way of students could access resources from anywhere at any time on any device. Why wouldn't we be using this? And I think we were doing, can you remember, it feels like so long ago, and this feels like some kind of relic. But can you remember when you used to have to mirror a computer to get into it? So if you were at home, and you needed to get to your work folders, you'd have to use some kind of, what did they call it? It was there was a Microsoft version where
absolutely know what you mean, because it was one of the first things that I got taught as a middle leader. It was and now you can do this. And I was like, wow. I actually, again, I think even as an ed techie myself, I don't think I ever really did it. I was a bit I'm all right, actually.
It was always just so clunky, and it would bring up what your screen at school would look like. Yeah.
And
but
slightly shrunk.
Yeah. And then none of the files would actually open. But anyway, I kind of really got passionate about, along with a few friends in my department, really passionate about, well, how do we tell people about this technology, really? How do we kind of start to evangelize and try to make people's lives a bit easier? And yeah, so that was kind of always a bit of a thread through my teaching early career. And then one of the guys in my department, a guy called Ben Whitaker, we started a podcast together. I know you know Ben. And I think we started the podcast just to kind of, as an extension of what we were kind of banging on about in our school, to tell people about this technology. And as we started to get down that route of podcast, we realized this was much bigger than just ed tech, because once you get into it, you very quickly get into the whole area of the future of education. If technology is going to advance as much as we're led to believe it is, then what does it mean for the future of education? So that kind of became a real passion of mine alongside my career. And yeah, I suppose I was eventually I found myself as a director for innovation and digital at a large group of colleges in the northeast of England. And I remember I was putting together a 5-year strategy for innovation. And I decided to go and spend a bit of time in local industries. So I got into some local industries, went and just kind of observed, asked questions. And I remember this was probably about 2021. And I remember asking somebody, like, what technology are you starting to look at, what you're starting to use, and then telling me about essentially what would become ChatGPT, I guess. And it really, really intrigued me. It really, really made me think, actually, this is kind of really interesting. If we can give some of this power to our teachers, then helping them get through masses of work. Obviously, it was further education, so a lot of coursework, a lot of portfolio work, and just to give our teachers the ability to be able to pick out key information from them. So we started to go down that route and started to look at how artificial intelligence and language models could help. We started to trial and explore it. And then kind of really out of the blue, OpenAI released ChatGPT. And I first of all was like, my goodness, I wasn't expecting the capability for like another 10 years of what it could bring. And I remember kind of that, I think it was the last day of November 2022, playing around with it and then just kind of posting a screenshot. Like, you know, you can do like a screenshot on your phone, but like as a video, and just a quick video of me typing in like something that is really basic now, like something like write a lesson plan for me. But back in 2022, which feels like so many years ago now, that was like mind blown. So I just started posting little things like that online, going, because I just didn't see anybody else doing it from an education point of view. It'd only been out a few days. And then I suppose those started to go viral very, very quickly and for obvious reasons. And yeah, my life's kind of been a bit of a whirlwind since then. So I remember, I think it was the 1st of January, one of my messages went like really viral. And then by the end of January, I remember sitting in the Good Morning Britain studio, sat next to Richard Madeley and the other presenter, being labeled as an AI expert, like literally within the space of a month, and just thinking, what is going on with my life? So it all happened really, really quickly. And I left my job within further education, got a book deal, so wrote the AI classroom literally within a few months, because publisher was like, yeah, well, this is urgent. Let's get this out as fast as possible. So I kind of I think I had 2 weeks holiday left before I left the job. So I took that and then kind of just got up at 4 o'clock every morning and just kind of wrote the core of the book within a couple of weeks. We got that out. And now I suppose I'm really, really lucky and fortunate that a big part of my job is I just get to travel around different schools, districts, different maths, different colleges, universities around the world. Most of my work's kind of in the UK and in the United States at the moment, and just work with teachers, work with leaders, and really try and help them, first of all, to get their heads around this, build their skill sets around this, but then also look at the strategic side of this and where we go. And yeah, so that's the main part of my job. I work with a few governments as well, on it like more of an advisory role, and write a lot. I write for Forbes every week on this subject, and books as well. Yeah, so that's kind of my journey. But I suppose it kind of parallels the journey the world has been going on over the last few years as well.
Absolutely, it really does, and it really resonated when you said it feels like it was such a long time ago. I feel like there's been such a rapid pace of change since that moment in November, that actually we've all gone through such a shift and such a huge trajectory that's just been flown across all of us, and everything has been shaken up. You know, I think one of the things I've written down quite a few bits, so I'm going to just delve into lots of different bits now. But one of the things that I wrote down there was viral. Like all the kids these days, they're all like, oh, I just want to go viral, like without expecting it, as just, as you say, like just a teacher, just like just generally just getting on with it because you just really enjoy it and really interested and curious. Like, how did that feel?
To be honest, I suppose in the moment you're not thinking, "Oh, I'm going viral. Does this mean I'm an influencer now?" Like, that's not like a thought. It's more like it was genuine connection, because it was literally every time I put something out, it must be 99% of people, it was the first time they were seeing things like this. So I would get so many DMs, so many messages, so many requests for like, can you jump on a call and talk to me about this? And I genuinely, I don't know how I did it, but I genuinely responded to everything. I would like stay up late talking to people, because I suppose going back to like those early days when I was trained to be a teacher and wanting to sit down and tell people about the technology and how it could help them. It was kind of that, but it was on a bigger scale, and I really wanted to talk to people, and one of the reasons was because, and I'm sure many people will probably resonate with this on who are listening, is actually when you show people the power of the technology and the benefits of it for the first time, it blows their mind. So even just that reaction as somebody who is sharing it was kind of a bit addictive, and just to see that people's minds were being blown in a good way, where they thought, my goodness, this could really, really help me. So yeah, that was kind of I just can't do, I always feel guilty now. I don't know about you, but I always, if I sat down and replied to everything now, I would never see my family. And so there's like literally like a certain percentage that I don't even reply to now. And always feel really bad, but I just can't unless I like somehow train an AI agent to do it for me. I'm not going to be able to do it.
This episode is brought to you by Edmentum, a leading edtech provider bringing global, future-ready learning to schools in more than 100 countries worldwide. I'm fortunate enough to have long-time familiarity with Edmentum, their commitment to keeping pace with the needs of today's students and then delivering innovative solutions that both accelerate academic achievement across K through 12 and enhance university and career readiness for all learners, truly sets them apart. Backed by the highest caliber of research, Edmentum's AI-driven assessment, personalized curricula, and virtual instruction give the tools to prepare students for successful future. Visit edmentum.com to learn more about Edmentum's comprehensive solutions and how they can help you address your goals. No, and I think that's realistic. I think hopefully people understand that. It's like many people, they just can't cover all those different types of inboxes. Imagine if you went onto every single social media you had and did that. What I think is lovely, and I feel that really comes across, is just that, as you've mentioned, that passion just to help and support people. That's something that's always driven me about EdTech, is that the tech that's really great is solving those problems. It's tech that is helping people to do their job better, to access learning in a better way, a more manageable way for them. Hugely into accessibility tech. Those sorts of things are really enabling. We were talking to the World Bank not long ago and about the equality and equity around AI, and actually lots of different countries that they're not the Western countries that, they haven't got the abundance, are using this as an opportunity to leverage and to move forwards and to prosper. And it's phenomenal, the difference that these things are making in a really positive way.
Yeah. And that's, I think, especially at the moment, there's a lot of, and rightfully so, there's a lot of conversations around the dangers and the risks around technology. And we have, like, there's movements growing, and even in just the last year, Jonathan Haidt over the United States, and the anxious generation, and kind of the almost anti-tech movement that is starting to build around that. Then along with some of big risks with AI. I often describe AI when I'm with teachers as a balance, like the traditional scales of a balance. And the more we lean into the benefits, the more that the risks kind of bear down on us. And I think it's not a bad thing that we're obviously getting. We want to mitigate against these risks, of course, especially when our primary care is for young people in education. However, I think sometimes we especially the last year or so, we rush past the benefits really quickly. And I think we forget, actually, some of this really does help. And I think you touched on a great category there of accessibility. Like, literally, some of our kids in schools could not survive without the technology and what it enables them to do. So I think we're still scratching the surface with this as well. I still think we're kind of feeling in the dark around what's going to work, what doesn't work. And that's why we stumble, and sometimes it doesn't work. I was reading, in fact, I did a critique on my LinkedIn yesterday of a New York Times article that kind of presented the skeptics' view of AI in education. The main argument essentially was, look at the movement for one-to-one devices in schools. It essentially hasn't improved learning outcomes. That was like kind of the overall argument. I mean, there's so many holes in that argument. I think one of the things is actually, just because something hasn't worked in the past doesn't mean we shouldn't keep trying to improve education and the outcomes for students, because then we would just be stuck. If we were afraid of failure, then we'd be stuck all of the time. So I think there still needs to be that excitement around, could this work? Trialing it and trying it out and innovating in a safe way, but not being too scared to go, right, well, we're not going to touch that because we're just scared of everything that might happen. You know what? This is a really big thing I've been thinking about even just this morning. Every single year I put a survey out to people on my mailing list and so on, and just say, right, look, in the coming year, what do you think are the main needs for education around artificial intelligence? And yeah, it's kind of broken down into a lot more kind of nuanced questions. But I've been analysing that data a lot the last few days. First, it helps me plan what kind of message I want to deliver in the coming year and what kind of resources and so on. But one of the things I really see keep coming out is almost like a waiting for permission. People are kind of in a holding bay at the moment. We've tried it out. We've realized, it's a bit risky. Some of the things are amazing that you can do with it. We also have realized there could be long-term disruption from this technology on the system as a whole. Where do we go? Well, we don't know. And it almost seems to be, and I was in a school on Monday in Sussex in England, and I did a full day with their staff, and then I spent an hour at the end of the day just with their leadership team, and kind of the same thing came out. It was like, well, but where do we go? There's almost like a lack of judgment. There's the ability to judge this technology and where we should go with this technology is not developed, and that's nobody's fault. I mean, it's brand new. It's not a technology that just affects one area. It affects every area of life once you start delving into it. And so they don't know what to do, or we're afraid to make a judgment because it could be the wrong judgment. And I think, and I was reading something the other day, apparently Barack Obama used to make a decision when he reached 51%. Certainty. So like a lot of leaders go a bit higher than that, but he was like when he sent the team in to get bin Laden, they had no idea he was in that house. They'd never seen him there. They had no conclusive evidence that he was in there. But as soon as he got to 51% certainty, he sent them in. Now the thing is, with a leader like that, we're gonna laud and we're gonna celebrate the things that they got right. But what we don't see is a lot of the things they got wrong. And someone was telling me, I was the CEO of VentureEd. I went for coffee with him a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this, and he brought up, apparently Roger Federer, the greatest male tennis player ever, literally only won. It was something crazy, like 52% of his shots. But
wow,
he made those 50%, 52%. I don't think that is the statistic, so please don't. Yeah, it's around that. But he made those shots in the moments that he needed to. And so it just really fascinates me that I think at the moment we're waiting for 100% certainty.
Yeah.
In our
You're
judgment.
right. And it's potentially those people who get to 51% and go, let's do it, that will be in the forefront of this. They'll be the ones that have made those risks and taken those risks, and it's paid off for them.
Yeah. And I think, it's not even just about we want to be at the forefront, but it's about making it accessible to everybody else then as well. Because, right, well, if they've gone down that road, then actually it's more acceptable now for us to go down that road.
Yeah.
And not every school can be an innovative school. That's just not how the world works. But if a certain amount of if the balance is tipped and a certain amount of schools do start to explore new avenues and start to make some crucial decisions about where they want to go, then it could bring the rest of education with it. Now, I know there'll be people listening going, yeah, but what if it's the wrong decision? Again, our primary concern is children's futures. We don't want, and I think that's probably one of the main reasons for stagnation when it comes to decision making around this, is that we don't want to get it wrong, because that could be a whole generation or a whole year group within our school that we've failed. Now, my response to that is, don't make a decision that 2 weeks later you can't put back to normal. That's probably where you want to draw the line. You don't want to go, right, we're going to demolish the school building and become a virtual school, and then 2 weeks later be like, that was the wrong decision and we now don't have a school building anymore. Like, don't make that type of decision. Make the decisions where you can roll back quite easily. Where
AI
you can
told
go,
me
actually.
to.
So I think there's I'm trying to develop kind of a bit of a framework around this at the moment. So to kind of take with me as I work with schools over the coming year. And I think there's a real need for kind of helping leaders in education at the moment on how to make crucial decisions, because in a way I think we've never had to make these type of brave decisions before, because it's not just, do we allow a laptop in the classroom or not? Do we have the school open for an extra half an hour? It could impact lives in a major way, and also the risk of not acting as well. We tend to focus on the risk of what we do. It's also a huge risk, if not a greater risk, in what we don't do. Just sitting on the fence is going to be just as risky as going forward.
Totally.
Which one are you going to do?
I think as well, in a world where it's inevitable that it is there, we do have to be the people in education, have to be the people to support students and teachers to understand that, of course, there are negatives and there are risks, but there are with everything in life. There are risks with crossing the road, but we do things to mitigate those risks. And by not teaching, we actually end up putting people at far greater risk because of ignorance and lack of knowledge around those sorts of things. I guess one of the things that I was quite keen to ask as well was a little bit around ethics, really, but that the sort of pressure almost on yourself to say, this is a good idea, you should do it. Like, how have you found and navigated that journey with schools? I mean, you work globally with so many people, and you know, you can tell people and advise and support them, and they will do ultimately what they decide and deem to be the right thing. But how have you found that journey?
Yeah, I think I probably don't see myself as someone who is there to go, do this or do that, or don't do this or don't do that. I think I very much take the approach of, I suppose, like design thinking, really. It kind of informs a lot of what I do, and starting with, first of all, with empathy, and actually looking at what actually are the needs. And that's not me going into a school and going, let me determine what your needs are. It's about facilitating a team within the school to look at what their own needs are. And I think once you start there and you get the team, the group, the school to start thinking, what do we need to do here? I can help direct by going, well, you know what, I've seen this work in this other school amazingly, or even down to the basics of, like, this tool is pretty good, try it out. But ultimately, like you say, it's them that are going to make the decision. At some point I walk away and they're responsible on a legal level for that school. So it's them who has to make the decision. It's them who has to determine what is the right path for them. I think I just try to present options. I try to give some advice with caveats, and I try to say, right, this might be good for you. I suppose it's a bit like a mentor relationship, really, of going, actually, this, you know what, from what I know from your school, I think this might be the best option for you. But ultimately, letting them make the decision. So, yeah, it's a tough one, and I suppose it's especially and I think which is what you were trying to get at with a technology that does have many issues with it. It's really difficult to recommend. It's really difficult because especially like some of the, as I'm sure your listeners will know, like some of this technology, the terms and conditions of it might change a week later, and all of a sudden it's not suitable for the 16-year-old you just recommended it to, or whatever. So it's a really, really difficult area in such a fast moving landscape. But I think what you've got to do is you've got to educate, and if somebody's listening and they're responsible for this in their school, you've got to just continually educate yourself and stay up to date. And if you're going to make that decision, if you do get to that crucial percentage and go, right, let's make this decision, don't just make the decision and then forget about it. You're going to have to stay informed on that decision. You're going to have to measure the impact of that decision. So yeah, it's a tricky area, but I guess everything's like that. I mean, every major decision you make in your own life is like that as well. You want to make sure that that no one's being harmed in the process, and that the benefits are being realized while mitigating those harms.
This episode is supported by Edruption. Edruption works with schools, trusts, governments, and education organisations to design inclusive, accessible, and sustainable digital systems, moving strategy from paper into practice in ways that genuinely work for people. From digital audits and 360 reviews to coaching for digital and AI leaders, governance frameworks, and safeguarding first implementation, Edruption helps organisations build and refine digital ecosystems that are secure, purposeful, and future-ready. Not only that, but they're Canva trainer partners too, supporting schools to embed creativity, accessibility, and consistency at scale, not as add-ons, but part of everyday life and inclusive practice. So if you're navigating AI readiness, inspection pressure, staff capability, or simply looking into bringing clarity in an increasingly complex digital landscape, Edruption is here to support that journey. Explore their work at edruption.com, empowering change and meeting you where you are. Absolutely. And I think it's a really interesting part to bring in kind of the rapid pace at which a lot of governments and global organisations have brought in frameworks. Of all of the frameworks, and again, this is probably quite a tricky question to answer, but what are your favourites, or what bits do you think I'm so glad that said that. I'm so glad that they advise that at a level that they are at to help support people and understand.
Do you mean like global frameworks?
Yeah. So like we've obviously had the EU AI Act. We've had advice from UNESCO. We've got frameworks coming out from OECD. All of these different kind of massive organisations, Code.org have got a whole AI implementation plan that they share with people. Of those sorts of things, like what have you seen that you kind of go, thank goodness that was written down on paper by somebody at that level?
You know what? In a way, I'm not going to answer your question, mainly because I think a lot of the frameworks are very similar, and I think, and this is not to disparage those frameworks, because they're like an off-the-shelf framework is amazing. Of course it is. It's going to save you a bit of time, and you get a sense of what everybody else is using. I think a lot of the frameworks, if you were to sit down a team in your school for a day and do a workshop with them, they'd probably come out with something very, very similar. I don't think they're necessarily groundbreaking. I think a lot of the frameworks are based on risk mitigation as well, which obviously is very, very important. And interesting, you mentioned the EU Act there as well, and very, very much from a risk first point of view, which I think is needed. But it needed as a first step. Like a lot of these frameworks will look at, right, what are we doing for our data privacy? Of course, that needs to be addressed. It might look at academic integrity. Okay, so what do we, and within that you get how much AI use before students become dependent on. And there's no real answer there. Research is still being done, but there are frameworks out there that will say, right, maybe use this scale or whatever it might be. All of that is good. And I think when I first go into a school, I always say, like, that's your first step, really. That's where you draw your lines in the sand and you build confidence that all your stakeholders, your parents, your students, your staff, everybody knows exactly where you stand at them on this. You've got a grip of it. We are using this safely, if we're using it at all. I think what more concerns me is what happens next. So, and it's what I try to focus on. So it's interesting because I always think, like, I wrote my book Infinite Education, which came out about this time last year, actually, but I think it probably is like this week last year. It's a strategy book, but I don't think it's a strategy book in terms of how many people view strategy. And what I mean by that is, I think most strategy books you buy is a framework book. It'll tell you, right, here's what, and that's needed. Of course it's needed, but it's more of going back to what I was saying before, it's more of a book that goes, right, where do you want to be? Let's pick an arbitrary number. Let's say 5 years time. Let's say 8 years time, whatever it might be. Where do you want to be and how do you get there? So after we've laid the foundation, we're making sure data's safe. We're making sure our children are protected, making sure our staff are trained, that all of the components to what you see in kind of the average framework. Once we've got that done, where do we want to be now in 5 years' time? And I often, when I talk about this, I often go back to something my dad used to say to me when I was young, and he would say to me, whenever I'd come up against a problem, he would say, throw your hat over the wall. And what he would mean by that was, by the way, I grew up thinking this was like a saying that everybody said. You know, like when your parents say things to you and you're like, when you're older, then you realize they just made it up. You're like, oh, okay, that's not a thing. But he used to say to me, throw your hat over the wall. And essentially what he was saying was, when you come up against a challenge, when you come up face to face with a brick wall and you don't know how to get over it, you throw your hat over. And then if you want that hat back, you're going to have to find a way to get over it. And for me, that's strategy. I think the strategic plan or the framework, whatever you want to call it, then is secondary. But to me, the strategy is essentially throwing the hat over the wall and saying, you know what, in 5 years' time, this is who we want to be. This is who we want our students to be. This is what we want our staff to be. And then you try to figure out how to get over the wall. Then you go, right, okay, now we've got a problem to solve because we need to get over that wall. And it doesn't matter if you fall off the wall. It doesn't matter if you go climb across the wrong wall and you've spent so much energy doing it and time. And then you get to the point you realize this route isn't going to work. Let's go back to square one. Let's try this way. What matters is getting over the wall, not necessarily the way you get over the wall. Now, I think a lot of the frameworks help with the first few steps, but I don't think they get us over the wall. I think we need something else that's going to get us over the wall. And to a certain extent, I don't have an answer to that. Now, it feels like a bit of a cop-out, but it goes back to what we were saying. When I go into a school, I don't have an answer for that school necessarily. It's up to that school to come up with an answer for themselves, because how they get over the wall is going to be very different to how another school gets over the wall. And I think that's a good thing, because I think for many, many years, the route to success has been exactly the same for every single school. I mean, within reason, that's a bit of a generalization, but because of how our standardized system is set up, it's pretty much been the same route. I think if we really truly want to innovate going into the future of an AI world, which is coming fast, I don't think we realize just how fast and how disruptive it probably will be, then I think we need to start each individual school or MAT or district or group of schools, or even at a government level as well, is going to have to start thinking, actually, how do we do this based on who our students are, who our people are, what our ambitions are? How do we do it and not just follow the same line that we've always done? And that causes so much tension. Like I said yesterday, I was with a group of leaders, and straight away you come up against the tension of, but in year 11 or year 13 or whenever it is, they've got to sit in an exam hall, got to write down in a paper booklet all the information they've learned. That's, although we like to say that's not what we measure schools on, it kind of is. So there's a big tension, and I call that in a lot of my talks, I call that a liminal space. We're in a space at the moment between how things were and how things could be, and that's when you look into psychology, that's a really difficult place to be. It's a bit of a paradoxical place to be, because it can ruin some people, but it can also make some people, and it all depends on hope. And It's fascinating. I love this stuff. But so when going back to your question where you just asked a basic question about frameworks, I think pick a framework, adapt it to what you're doing, make sure you're ticking the boxes of regulation, of course, get that done, and then pull a team together, which is a shameless plug, but my book Infinite Education is how you do this. It's a step-by-step process on how to bring a team together, what to do with them, what kind of tasks you can do to get these ideas flowing, and then start really looking at how you're going to throw that hat over the wall. And when you do it, don't think about the wall, because if you come up against the wall and you see how big it is and how wide it is, you're not going to throw your hat over it, because straight away you're going to start doubting yourself. You're going to start thinking, but am I ever going to get my hat back? You've got to almost, in a way, close your eyes and throw your hat over the wall, and then go, right, how do we get over? And you're going to be in a much better position. And in a way, that kind of links back to the whole judgment thing. If you start going, yeah, but this, but that, and overwhelm yourself to the point where you land in a decision paralysis. And I think to a large extent, I think that's where many of us are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a big fan of a hat, although I'm not very good at throwing. So, no, I love that. And I hope your dad's very proud that you've been telling everybody it. It's a nice way to think about it. And you're right. I think it reminded me a little bit of that image, with the two children appearing over the wall, and then you see the back of the wall and one of them stood on a little stool, because it's not...
Yeah.
You couldn't see over the wall. So how do I get to see what everyone else can see? I think that's more about leadership, but it's that kind of that same.
Yeah, I think it's equity, isn't it? It's like it represents equity.
Yeah,
I've seen that image. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a similar way, and I think that probably kind of goes to support that it's not going to be the same for every school.
No.
Some schools are going to need more support, some less. So it's different
places,
journeys.
different demographics. Like I always talk about ticky-tacky little boxes on the hillside, which you probably know from that lovely song that everyone sings in primary school.
You know what? I'm really embarrassed.
And they talk about how they all... You don't know it? Oh, I'm going to have to find it.
Can you sing it for me? I might recognise it. I'm joking.
I can't even remember where it's from, but I remember that we used to sing it every week in assembly in primary school. And it was all about these houses on the hillside, and they all look just the same. And I always talk about how, but with schools aren't. Schools, even with every single child sat in those rooms, you might have 30 children in every room. That doesn't mean you've got the same 30 children. You've not got the same 30 teachers. You've not got the same furniture, anything that's so different. And we have to meet schools where they're at. And I think that's really, really interesting to be able to kind of see that from the AI perspective as well, of like, actually, this is how you make those steps. This is what you consider. You consider yourself, your surroundings, your kind of needs as a school. So tell me a little bit about the handbook, because you didn't just write one book last year, you wrote two.
Yeah. I mean, technically, I didn't write that book. I edited it. A lot of amazing people wrote it for me. So what the year before that, back in 2024, I essentially, so I write for Forbes every week, and there was a series of articles I did where I thought, I could put these together, and actually, it could be a little bit of a guidebook. So I put it on my website for free. And then I had a lot of people saying, could we have a print version of this? Well, I didn't know how to do that. So the simplest way I knew how to do it was to publish it on Amazon. So Amazon take a little cut of that. So I just put it on a cost price for us, or it was like £3 or something like that. And it all went to Amazon. People got a printed copy, and it went down really well. In fact, it literally became a bestseller in a few categories on Amazon, just for something that took me like a few hours to do. So it really got me thinking, could we do this every year? Because like we've been saying, this moves at such a fast pace. It'd be really nice to have like a little handbook, an annual handbook that teachers could use, leaders could use, just to give them some ideas and some guidance for the year ahead. So we did it again. Yeah. So we released it in August last year. It's called the Educators AI Guide 2026, but we released it like halfway through 2025, but it with the idea that it would be the book for the next 12, 18 months that teachers could carry around with them and dive in and out of. And as I was starting to think about it, I was thinking, you know what, I know you're on LinkedIn as well, and there's just so many good people talking about and writing some amazing things and doing amazing things around this. I thought, let's actually put their voices in. So I reached out to a few people, and we kind of made it up. It was made of 3 parts. So the first part was what tools are educators using. So part 1 was different chapters, like what are the tools that teachers are using for accessibility, for assessment, admin jobs. So we split it into some categories, and then I surveyed, I think we had over 2,000 teachers from around the world who filled it out and just got them to say, right, what's your best tool? Why do you use it? What's the impact it's having? Took all of that, kind of worked out a bit of a top 10 for each category, and then put the teachers' voices in there. Now, what the great thing about that was because we were mentioning specific tools, it gave us a great way to fund the book, because we knew we weren't, this was never to make a profit, but I reached out to some of the companies that were mentioned in the book and said, look, do you want to sponsor it? We'll put your logo on the front. And so it was a nice way for them to, and also I wanted this to be a bit of a 360 on the subject, leadership voices, teacher voices, but also the companies who are actually creating this technology for schools. I think sometimes within education we tend to hold those companies at arm's length, and for good reasons sometimes, because we need to figure out their motivation, whether they want to help us as a school or just make a profit off us as a school, and so on. Having worked with so many tech companies, that I know there are so many good people out there who are making these tools and genuinely sit down day after day in classrooms with teachers with a mindset of how do I solve a problem for teachers. So it allowed us to put their voice in as well, and to go, right, this is from our point of view as people making the tools. This is what we're seeing. This is why we're doing what we're doing. So it's kind of a bit of a 360. There's no, probably the obvious omission there is the student voice, which we didn't put in, mainly for practical reasons and logistical reasons. But I'm sure it's something that will come eventually. Maybe not from what I do, but from what somebody else does. I wanted some clear case studies of how schools were doing this. So the whole idea is the whole thing is very practical. So again, I kind of reached out and said, look, I'm looking for 7 different types of schools who are integrating AI in 7 different ways. I kind of came up with a loose framework based on my own experience with schools of how integration can happen, and in different ways. So we got those case studies, which were amazing, from schools all over the world about what they're doing, conscious to put impact in there as well, and evidence of what was going on. So the middle section is those case studies, and the last section is kind of the ethical questions, those the big things that people want to know the answers to and want to grapple with. So some amazing experts in those fields took those. So we had an economist from California wrote a bit on kind of the sustainability element of it. She's called Karen Boyd. Her speciality on AI. We had Matthew Weems, who we both know, looked at it from kind of security data point of view, which he's become an expert on few years. Kingsley, who we both know as well, wrote on governance and kind of the ethical side of governance. Victoria Headland wrote about bias, and that's kind of her speciality. Yeah, so I kind of pulled all this together, I'm just always kind of overwhelmed when you'll get this with your book as well, I'm sure, all the time, when people approach you, you'll just be like at a random event, or it's like you're having a low day and an email pops in and it's like someone going, I love the book and using it a lot at the moment. And what I keep hearing is people saying something like, it stays on my desk, or it stays in my hand, or whatever. And that's kind of what we wanted it to be, something that you can just dip in and out of throughout the year and take tips from. Yeah, I'm really proud of it. And as we're now in 2026, we're kind of gearing up to reach out for the 2027 guide, which will hopefully be out in September. So if you're out there and you think, I'm doing amazing things with AI, it's making an impact, I've got amazing case studies, and watch out, because I'll start putting some announcements out in the next few weeks about how you can contribute. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Philippa. I appreciate it.
No, it's brilliant. I think it's going to be awesome, and exactly the same. I think the teacher voice bit, because one of the things that actually I was going to bring up as well was the Forbes articles that you wrote, but quite recently you did some shout outs and kind of ones to watch. Like, what are your, I guess, predictions or kind of aspirations that you're seeing coming through from different educators and things that maybe other people should have a little bit of a watch out for?
Yeah, I've always tried to kind of make this about the sharing those voices, I think. Not from some kind of altruistic motive. It's more just like, actually, there's loads of people out there who say things a lot better than I find other people, and a lot better than myself. And actually, I think as we've discussed already, this is such a vast topic that lots of little specialities are starting to form. So we get somebody who really dedicates their time and research to a certain aspect of it. And so obviously they're going to be the best people to listen to around this because they're doing things the rest of us don't have time to do. So putting those voices out there, I think, is so important for the wider education community. You know what? I worked in a school once, and I'll be really careful not to say the name of the school, but I once worked in a school where the attitude from the leadership was to not share, even with a local school, because it was seen as a big competitor, and it always used to blow my mind and actually make me feel a bit sad, actually, because I thought, you know what, like the kids from our school, when they play out on an evening or on a weekend, they're literally going to be playing with the kids from that school. Like they live on their streets. Like the school's like half a mile away from. For us not to care about those children, but care about the children who just arbitrarily went to our school, I just feel like, and I think it's a outcome of that kind of system we talked about before about, well, how do we measure the success of what we're doing, it's unfortunate, but I think, so I've always been a big believer in, it's about, at the end of the day, empowering all our teachers to make the lives of our children more successful, doesn't matter where they're from. And so I did, I tried around. In fact, it was a bit spontaneous because I got to like a week before Christmas, and it just suddenly occurred to me that I hadn't prepared any kind of end of year like content or anything like that. Like, you know, I saw lots of people start to go, here's my top 10 list from this year, and I was like, actually, I've gathered quite a bit of content and great stuff from this year. I should probably do that. It probably wouldn't be too much of a job. So yeah, I did I think for like every day for a week on Forbes, I did like a top 10 podcasts to listen to, top 10 bits of research from this year on AI in education, top 10 books that have come out over the last 12 months. I'll not mention any specifically, but if you just type Dan Fitzpatrick Forbes, you'll find them on Forbes. But I think it just goes to show that there's so much good information out there and so much good practice, and that if you're in a school trying to figure this out for yourself at the moment, although like we've said, it's a personal journey, we don't have to do that alone. There's so many people sharing their experiences and their expertise around this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've definitely found over the last 10 years that I've been working specifically with EdTech, it's just the most incredible community of people who really do want to raise each other up and help support each other. And, you know, it's not about closing doors, it's about opening them and opening arms a lot of the time. There's a lot of big hugs happening. And actually that brings me nicely onto where we'll all be in a couple of weeks' time at BET. So I am assuming that you will be there, and do tell us a little bit about maybe some of the things that you're going to be getting up to the week.
Yeah. I always try to be a BET if I can. I think, like you said, it's good, like if for this community of people in EdTech to get together. So yeah, I'll be there. I've got a few things going on. So as you can imagine, a few events. I suppose let me mention a few of them. So if you want to come and say hello, if you want a free book as well, there'll be a few kind of book signing opportunities. But I will be on the Wednesday. I'll be at the Everway stand and doing some stuff with the great people at Everway, talking about technology and accessibility, and probably the world leaders there of that. So come along and see me. I think it's going to be at 11:30. Then I'm giving a talk with, I mentioned Nick earlier from Venture Ed. We're going to be doing like a bit of a joint talk on how we think parental engagement is a real key to helping students be successful at school, and how technology can enable that. At the minute, I think probably a lot of technology is not helping. And if you've got a child at school, you know that how many apps you have to download, how many different repetitive messages you get sent, because I think there's parental engagement can be done better with technology, and so we're going to have a little bit of a chat about that and explore that. Going to be doing some great stuff with the people at Kahoot. I really love some of the stuff they're doing at the minute around AI, and what really stands out for me is that they're not necessarily doing what 99% of other companies are doing in terms of just making AI tools for teachers, but they're really trying to put AI into the hands of students, so students can take what they need to learn and produce some resources, quizzes, and so on with Kahoots. Yeah, going to spend some time with John Neal, who's now at Kahoot on the Wednesday. Yeah, and a few other things during the week. I'll not go through everything. I realise I'm just in danger of just reading out my diary for the week. But yeah, I'll post some stuff online about where I'm going to be. But I'd love, if you're listening to this and you're going to be at Beck, please do come say hello and grab a free copy of the book we've just been mentioning, the Educator's AI Guide.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for being with us. It's been an absolute pleasure and a real joy just to listen to you talking around AI and in such a different way with different perspectives. So it's been really interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. You've been listening to the EdTech Podcast with myself, Philippa Wraithmell, and our guest, Dan Fitzpatrick. This episode leaves us with an important reminder. AI in education isn't just a technical challenge, it's a leadership one. The real work sits in judgment, values, and willingness to act responsibly without waiting for perfect answers. Frameworks, regulation, and guidance matters. But they're only the starting point. What follows is the hard work of deciding who we want our learners to become, what kind of systems we want to build, and how we can support schools to move forward without leaving people behind. If you're heading to Beck, Dan will be there, and if not, you can explore his writing, books, and the Educator's AI Guide to dive deeper into themes we've just discussed today. As always, you'll find links and resources into the show notes. And if this episode has sparked reflection or raised new questions, share it with someone in your network, a school leader, policymaker, or educator navigating AI decisions right now. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the EdTech Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and share the EdTech Podcast wherever you're listening. It really helps us grow and reach more educators and innovators around the world. We'd also love to hear from you, your thoughts, questions, or even your own stories of change in education. You can leave us a voice note on SpeakPipe. The link is in the show notes. And we might even feature your message in an upcoming episode. And of course, you can find all our links and show notes and resources at theedtechpodcast.com.